The Bulldog's snarl ripped through the sacred silence at Arlington, its teeth inches from the female guard's boot. The crowd expected her to break. They didn't know she was the one true master in that standoff. A crisp autumn air, heavy with the scent of fallen leaves and solemn reverence, settled over Arlington National Cemetery. The morning sun cast long, reverent shadows, illuminating the endless, silent rows of white headstones, each a stark monument to a life given in service. At the nation's very heart stood the tomb of the unknown soldier, a hallowed shrine of white marble, guarded over by a lone, stoic sentinel. That sentinel was Eliza Thorne. At 30 years old, she moved with a discipline that seemed almost supernatural. Her dark blue uniform was a study in perfection, every crease sharp, every piece of silver insignia gleaming with a cold fire. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a severe, immaculate bun, tucked beneath a service cap that shadowed her focused, ice-blue eyes. She carried her M14 rifle on her shoulder as if it were an extension of her own arm. 21 steps south. Click. A 21-second pause. Turn. 21 steps north. Each movement was a testament to duty, a living embodiment of the honor bestowed upon the unknowns she guarded. The crowd, a mix of hushed families, curious tourists, and stoic veterans, watched in captivated silence. They saw the uniform, the precision, the symbol. They did not see the 6 years Eliza had spent in the Air Force Security Forces, nor the elite K-9 unit where she'd handled dogs bred for the most dangerous situations on Earth. Then, the sacred silence was torn. A low, guttural growl, thick with menace, cut through the air. Heads turned. A man, Kyle Brock, shoved his way toward the front of the plaza. He was in his mid-40s, with a sallow complexion and a chip on his shoulder as visible as the faded logo of some long-forgotten rock band on his threadbare t-shirt. He held the leash of an old English bulldog, a beast of muscle and sinew named Brutus. The dog's brindle coat rippled with contained power, his broad chest and massive jaw a clear display of raw strength. Kyle pushed forward, his worn work boots scuffing the hallowed ground, a smirk playing on his thin lips. He tugged the leash, a subtle, practiced motion that made Brutus's growl deepen. The crowd instinctively parted, a wave of unease spreading through them. "Easy now, Brutus," Kyle cooed, his voice a grotesque parody of affection. "We're just here to see the show, aren't we?" His eyes, small and hard, weren't on the tomb. They were fixed on Eliza, a predatory glint in their depths. He was looking for a reaction, a crack in the perfect facade. He was about to make his first move. Eliza's march didn't falter. Her expression remained a mask of impenetrable calm, her gaze locked on an invisible point in the distance. But behind her eyes, a different part of her training had already taken over. "Look at that, Brutus," Kyle called out, his voice loud enough to carry, laced with a sneering contempt. "All dressed up, playing soldier. Think she even knows how to use that thing?" He gestured vaguely at her rifle. He then lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper directed at his dog, yet meant for everyone to hear. "Probably just for show, sweetheart." The word sweetheart hung in the air, a deliberate, demeaning jab. A young mother in a red coat pulled her two small children closer, her hand protectively on their shoulders. Near her, an elderly man wearing a Vietnam veteran's cap straightened his back. His voice was low but firm. "Son, you need to show some respect. This is hallowed ground." Kyle wheeled on him, his face twisting into a snarl. "Back off, old man. Me and my dog ain't hurting nobody." He gave Brutus's leash a sharp yank. "We're just having some fun with the little princess here. Ain't that right, boy?" Brutus let out a sharp bark, but Eliza's trained eyes saw what no one else did. It wasn't a bark of pure aggression. The dog's ears flickered back at the harsh tone of Kyle's voice. His weight shifted, his paws resetting on the pavement, a subtle sign of conflict, of a well-bred animal caught between a learned command and an instinct telling him something was wrong. Air Force Security Forces, K-9 Division, Lackland AFB, Eliza's mind recited, a silent mantra of her past. Subject, Kyle Brock. Unstable, seeking validation through intimidation. Weapon, One male Old English Bulldog, approximately 90 pounds. Excellent physical condition. Signs of advanced obedience training mixed with aggression conditioning. The dog is not the primary threat. The handler is. She filtered out the insults, the whispers from the crowd, the rising tension. All that mattered was the data. She saw the way Kyle's grip on the leash tightened just before he wanted a reaction, then loosened to give the illusion of lost control. She saw the slight tremor in Brutus's powerful shoulders. Not rage, but anxiety. The dog was looking to his handler for clear direction and receiving only chaotic, aggressive signals. Kyle, feeding off the crowd's fear, shortened the leash and let Brutus lunge forward. The dog's jaws snapped shut a foot from Eliza's polished black boot. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. "Dude, that's not cool," a college student muttered. Eliza continued her march. 21 steps. Turn. Pause. But her assessment was complete. This wasn't a monster. This was a highly trained service animal, likely from a line of military or police stock, being systematically abused and turned into a weapon by a weak man desperate to feel powerful. The real battle wasn't with the dog. It was with the man holding the leash. And the crowd was just beginning to understand that. The atmosphere on the plaza had shifted from solemnity to a thick, palpable tension. It was an arena now, and Kyle Brock was its self-appointed ringmaster. He spotted a woman in a business suit discreetly pulling out her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. "I wouldn't do that, lady," Kyle warned, his voice dropping. He let Brutus turn and fix his gaze on her, a low growl rumbling in the dog's chest. "My boy here gets real jumpy around phones. Makes him unpredictable." The woman froze, her hand trembling as she slowly lowered the device. Kyle had successfully taken the crowd hostage. He turned his full attention back to Eliza, closing the distance until his scuffed boots were only a few feet from her designated path. He was inside her space now, a flagrant violation of the invisible line of respect that surrounded her post. "So what's the matter, soldier girl?" he whispered, a venomous taunt meant only for her. "Too scared to move? All that fancy marching doesn't mean a thing when a real threat shows up." He let the leash go slack again, and Brutus edged closer, his muscular shoulders bunched. "I bet he can smell it on you." The fear, right through all that shiny gear. At the edge of the crowd, a cemetery security officer finally appeared, his hand on his radio, speaking quietly into it. Kyle's head snapped toward the movement, his face darkening with fury. "Calling for backup already?" he sneered. He pulled Brutus tight to his side, positioning the dog like a loaded weapon. "One step closer," he warned the officer, his voice a low and dangerous promise. "And everyone here gets to see how fast Brutus can really run." The officer stopped, his hand still on his radio, his face a mask of frustration. He was caught. He couldn't risk an attack on the guard or the civilians. Eliza's mind was a whirlwind of tactical calculations. Handler is escalating. Verbal provocations failed, now attempting physical intimidation to force a reaction. He's positioning the animal for a short burst attack. He believes my ceremonial discipline is a weakness. He's wrong. Kyle's fingers moved to the heavy brass clip on Brutus's collar. The metal glinted in the autumn sun. His confidence was peaking. He felt completely in control. "Let me tell you what's going to happen," he announced, his voice carrying across the silent, terrified crowd. "In about 5 seconds, my boy Brutus is going to test just how dedicated you are to standing still." He twisted the clip, sweat beading on his forehead. Not from heat, but from the adrenaline of his own twisted performance. Eliza's unwavering calm was getting under his skin, and he needed to break it. "Time's up, sweetheart," Kyle whispered, his thumb pressing down on the leash's release mechanism. The clip snapped open. The sound was as sharp and final as a gunshot. "Get her, Brutus!" Kyle's command cracked through the air like a whip. Freed from the leash, the bulldog lunged, a 90-pound missile of muscle and teeth hurtling toward Eliza. The crowd screamed, a wave of pure terror washing over the plaza. Some turned away, unable to watch. Others stood frozen, their hands covering their mouths in horror. Kyle's face twisted into a triumphant, ugly sneer. He had won. He had broken the untouchable guard. But he was wrong. In the split second that Brutus launched his attack, Eliza was already in motion. Her years of training took over, overriding the rigid ceremony of the tomb guard. She didn't flinch, she didn't retreat. She acted, with a grace that seemed impossible for someone in a formal military uniform. She broke her stance, dropping into a controlled, athletic crouch. Her gloved hands moved not with violence, but with the calm, swift precision of a surgeon. Brutus was inches away, his powerful jaws open. But instead of meeting a target, he met a master. Eliza's hands found the exact pressure points along the dog's neck and behind his ears. Techniques she hadn't used since her days rehabbing traumatized combat dogs under the desert sun of Afghanistan. There was no strike, no blow. It was a fluid, expert redirection of energy. The crowd's screams of terror died in their throats, replaced by stunned, collective gasps. Eliza guided Brutus's momentum downward, turning his aggressive charge into a harmless slide across the pavement. She brought him to the ground with a firm but gentle authority that spoke a language the dog understood far better than Kyle's angry shouts. "Easy there, buddy," Eliza said, her voice low, steady, and completely calm. It was the first time she had spoken. "You're not the enemy here." The effect was instantaneous. The aggression drained out of Brutus as if a switch had been flipped. The snarl vanished, his body relaxed, and his tail, which had been stiff with aggression, gave a single, tentative wag. Eliza's hands worked with practiced skill, her fingers massaging the spots that calmed a dog's fight-or-flight instinct, reassuring him that the threat was over. The crowd watched, utterly mesmerized, as Brutus, the snarling monster from seconds before, rolled onto his back, exposing his belly in a universal sign of complete trust and submission. Kyle's face went slack, his triumphant sneer melting into disbelief. "Brutus! Attack!" he shrieked, his voice cracking with panic and fury. "What are you doing? Get her!" But Brutus ignored him completely. His eyes were locked on Eliza, responding to the calm, confident authority he had clearly been craving. He was home. Eliza rose to her feet, one hand resting gently on Brutus's chest, keeping him calm and grounded. She looked up, her ice blue eyes sweeping over the stunned faces in the crowd. Her voice was clear and firm, carrying the authority of an instructor, not a victim. "This is not an attack dog," she stated, her words cutting through the silence. "This is an old English bulldog. His line was bred for loyalty and stability, a lineage that has served alongside our military and police forces for generations. He was built for service." She ran a gloved hand along Brutus's powerful flank, her fingers finding specific muscle groups. Everything about him, his strength, his intelligence, his instinct to please, was crafted for a noble purpose. Not for this. She glanced at Kyle, who was backing away, his face a blotchy red of humiliation and rage. "What you've done to him isn't just cruel. It's a betrayal of everything this animal was meant to be." As if on cue, the cemetery sergeant, now flanked by 2 local police officers, moved in. Their steps were measured, but Brutus remained perfectly calm, his head now resting against Eliza's knee. The lead officer, a woman with short-cropped hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, began reading from her notepad as her partner approached Kyle. "Intentional animal cruelty, public endangerment, disturbing the peace at a national monument, and attempting to incite an attack on a federal officer." With each charge, the color drained from Kyle's face. "You can't take my dog," he protested weakly. "I've got papers for him." "Sir, we have dozens of witnesses and multiple video recordings," the officer said flatly, cuffing his hand behind his back. "You're coming with us." Before Brutus was led away, Eliza demonstrated. "Brutus, sit," she commanded softly. The dog obeyed instantly. "Stay." He froze, a perfect statue of discipline. She looked at the crowd, at the wide-eyed children who were no longer afraid. This isn't a trick. This is who he is. Smart, disciplined, and eager to serve. He's responding to respect, not to fear. An animal protection officer, A kind-faced woman with graying hair knelt beside Brutus, her expert hands confirming Eliza's assessment. "Military breeding, no doubt," she murmured, nodding. "Belgian or British lines, I'd wager." Look at his response to command posture. She looked up at Eliza, a deep respect in her eyes. "You've worked with canines before, haven't you?" Eliza simply nodded, her gaze already returning to the tomb, her sentinel mode re-engaging. 3 years with the Air Force K, 9 unit, ma'am. Specialized in rehabbing working dogs. The officer smiled. "It shows." As Kyle was led away in handcuffs, his pathetic bravado completely gone, Brutus glanced at him one last time, then turned his head back toward Eliza. His loyalty had shifted decisively and permanently to the woman who spoke his language. The animal protection officer attached a proper, gentle lead to Brutus's collar. "We'll get him evaluated," she said quietly to the Vietnam veteran who had stepped forward earlier. "There are amazing programs for dogs like him. PTSD, support for veterans, search and rescue. He'll find his true purpose. He'll get to be the hero he was always meant to be." With the disturbance over, Eliza Thorne seamlessly resumed her post. She adjusted her rifle on her shoulder, her uniform somehow still pristine despite the chaos. The sun caught the silver badge on her chest as she took her first of 21 steps, her rhythm perfect, her duty unbroken. The crowd began to disperse, but their hushed whispers carried a new tone. It was more than just respect for the ceremony. It was a profound awe for the woman who embodied its principles. A little boy tugged on his father's sleeve. "Dad, why was that dog so mean to her? And then so nice?" The father knelt to his son's level, his voice filled with emotion. "Because she wasn't afraid, son. She was strong. Not the loud, angry kind of strong, the quiet, smart kind. That's real strength." Within hours, cell phone videos of the incident went viral. The story of the female tomb guard who tamed a beast with quiet confidence exploded across social media. The narrative wasn't just about an unruly tourist. It became a global conversation about the nature of authority, the definition of strength, and the quiet professionalism of those who stand watch. Hashtag TombGuard and hashtag Respect the Guard trended for days. So what do you think? What is true strength? In a world that so often confuses aggression with power, what does it say about our society's responsibility to animals like Brutus and to the men and women like Eliza Thorne who guard our nation's most sacred honors? How should we respect these silent guardians, regardless of their gender? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's show some common respect for one another. If this story of courage and compassion moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe for more stories of the kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be heard. True strength isn't about intimidation. It's about transforming a moment of conflict into a lesson of honor, just like Eliza did today, right here at the tomb of the unknown soldier.